Watching a legend slow down is unsettling not because of failure, but because of continuation under pressure. A performer who once shaped an era still appears on stages decades later, carrying memory, expectation, and time. The applause remains loud, yet it invites reflection on aging, identity, and endurance. This is the story of a musician whose life is tied to performance and whose presence raises questions about purpose and legacy. It is not about decline alone, but about persistence when stopping feels like disappearance. In that tension between applause and aging lies a human story about survival in public, the stage that never ends. For decades, the stage becomes more than a platform. It becomes a second home that defines rhythm, identity, and survival. A performer learns to measure time not by years but by tours, albums, and audiences. A performer learns to measure time not by years, but by tours, albums, and audiences. The stage resists closure because it represents continuity. To step away is separation from a living organism built over decades. For someone shaped by applause, silence can feel unfamiliar, even threatening, turning performance into necessity rather than choice. In this world, performance becomes identity, and identity becomes endurance itself. The early explosion of fame rarely arrives for who become icons. It often bursts into existence and reshapes everything at once. A single song can transform an unknown artist into a global figure overnight. Success brings opportunity, but also pressure, expectation, and sudden exposure. The world begins to watch not the music, but the person behind it. With attention comes momentum that is difficult to control or reverse. The artist learns that achievement is not a destination, but a doorway into constant demand. What begins as artistic expression becomes public identity, expanding faster than the individual can process or understand. Reinvention and controversy artists who endure across decades, often by changing direction, sometimes willingly, sometimes out of necessity. Reinvention becomes both strategy and survival. Yet every shift invites criticism from those who prefer an earlier version of the artist. Success in one style does not guarantee acceptance in another. As musical landscapes evolve, staying relevant requires risk, and risk invites judgment. What some call evolution, others label betrayal. The tension between artistic freedom and public expectation becomes a constant companion. For many performers, controversy is not an interruption of career, but a recurring feature of long-term visibility and cultural presence. The price of constant visibility. Living in the public eye for decades creates a unique burden where privacy becomes fragmented and identity becomes performance. Every appearance is recorded, interpreted, and remembered. Small changes in appearance or ability are magnified into narratives about decline or reinvention. This constant observation shapes behavior, encouraging control and discipline even in informal moments. Over time, the separation between private self and public persona begins to blur. The individual learns to exist within expectations that never fully disappear. Fame at this level is not only about attention, but about the pressure of being continuously understood, evaluated. Health battles and survival, physical decline, illness often redefine how performers relate to their craft. Forcing moments of reflection and adaptation. Health challenges can interrupt careers, but deepen appreciation for time and ability. Surviving serious conditions changes perspective making, return to performance more meaningful. Public figures who share such experiences often shift from entertainers to symbols of resilience. Yet behind symbolism remains a human being adjusting to vulnerability. Continuing to work despite medical setbacks is not simply determination, it is a negotiation with limits. The body becomes part of the narrative in ways it never was during early success. Identity woven into performance. For some artists, performance becomes inseparable from identity, where stepping on stage feels like returning to a truer version of self. Years of repetition create a persona that is both authentic and constructed. The audience sees energy and charisma, while the performer experiences discipline and memory. Over time, the boundaries between who they are and what they do begin to dissolve. Retirement then becomes more than stopping work, it becomes an existential shift. When applause defines meaning, silence can feel disorienting. The challenge lies in distinguishing personal worth from public validation in a life built on attention recognition. Aging under the spotlight. Aging in public carries a visibility that most people never experience, where every change is documented and compared to memory. For performers who once defined eras, time becomes a visible companion on stage. Physical limitations do not erase presence, but reshape it. Audiences may come to witness endurance as much as entertainment. There is admiration in continued effort, but nostalgia for earlier vitality. The spotlight does not fade easily, so aging becomes part of performance itself. What was once effortless now requires negotiation, yet commitment to appear remains a powerful statement of persistence, identity, legacy, and family. Beyond the stage, a performer's life expands into family relationships and quieter forms of legacy that exist outside applause. Children, partners, and grandchildren become anchors to a reality separate from touring schedules and public attention. For someone who has lived under constant visibility, these private roles offer grounding and continuity. Legacy is not only measured in records sold or awards received, but also in personal connections sustained over decades. As time passes, the balance between public identity and private life becomes more significant, shaping how meaning is understood when the spotlight eventually dims over time. The psychology of refusal to stop. Refusing to retire is not always about ego. Sometimes it is about continuity of self. When a life has been defined by a singular pursuit, stepping away can feel like loss of identity rather than relief. The stage becomes a reference point for meaning structure and emotional stability. Even when advised to slow down the pull of routine and recognition remains strong, work becomes rhythm and rhythm becomes comfort. For long careers, stopping is not a clear decision, but a gradual negotiation between body memory and desire. The question is not why continue, but how to stop conclusion. In the end, the story of a lifelong performer is not simply about success or decline, but about endurance in the face of time. Fame may change shape, but its imprint remains deeply embedded in identity. The stage offers meaning that is difficult to replace even when the body demands rest. What appears as a refusal to step away is a complex relationship with purpose, memory, and recognition. Aging does not erase relevance, it transforms it. The question is not whether the applause stops, but what remains when it does, and how a life built on sound adapts to silence.